Okay, what's up? This is blown out. This is insane. Let's see. Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to my world. Yesterday. Yeah, Jesus Christ. Yeah, this is absurd. I should have actually thought about this before I started recording. Hold on. So what's up? Stone cold crazy. Yo, I should probably actually let me pause. Jesus. Here, recording. What's up? Yeah, this is horrible. Can't even see my camera. The screen to check focus. I'm a cheater, and I use focus peaking. Let me turn this music off now. Now that I'm actually going to talk, I should not be playing that. Oh, come on. Stop. Fucking stop. Okay, better. What's up? Welcome to my YouTube channel. Focus peaking on the little OLED display. Used to be LCD displays. Now on the new cameras, they're LED. Anyway, on the camera display monitor, if you turn on focus peaking, it actually highlights the parts of the image that are in focus for you. So it's cheating. And I don't use focus peaking in real life. I have used it. I've used it for events. It can be helpful for event photography. Because you can fairly quickly get decent focus using focus peaking. Because on the actual screen on the camera, it highlights the parts in whatever color. I use red. I've used white. I've tried yellow. Red for me works the best because it just kind of jumps out. It's like, okay, that's the sharpest part of the image. And it's not perfect. Photography is not perfect. Look, nothing is perfect. And I actually kind of like referenced this briefly yesterday in the video I uploaded where I said, I kind of, nothing is perfect. I don't love everything, or I don't love anything. And this is actually true. Like nothing is perfect. And actually, I thought about that a little bit. Like that's why people are awesome, because like people are also imperfect, and like we're these things, but because we have like agency, and because we have will, and because we have like a projection and goals and activity and stuff, like because of the fact that we're sentient, conscious, agents in the world with self-awareness, sentience, we can act in reference or with reference to the imperfections about us. And so like that's what's really cool. Because I had said, I don't love anything. And then I thought about it. I was like, is that true? I was like, yeah, I think it is true. I don't love anything. But I definitely love a few people, at least. And it's because of the fact that we are people, and we are, holistic beings, right? And we take the imperfections or whatever that we are kind of thrown into, or that we fall into, we take them and we deal with them. And in the doing of the dealing, a lot of really cool shit happens. But that's not why, or that's not the only reason why. That's just one of the many reasons people are actually awesome, and why I love at least a couple people out there. So, but I thought about that. But so it's just true. Nothing is perfect, right? Like, there's the world of ideals. If you want to talk about like forms, platonic ideals. And then there's the world, like the actual embodied, instantiated world, the actual world. And we only ever have access to, first of all, we only ever have access to anything by way of our sensorium, our perceiving and interpreting apparatus, the senses, and consciousness and self-awareness and all that stuff too. These are structures as well. So there's that imperfect interpretation, imperfect perception, imperfect interpretation. There's that. But it is also true that just like in the world, there is always an element of, we'll call it chaos, right? Like there always is an element of the chaotic, right? And I think that's a consequence of materiality, like the physical world, the medium of existence itself. You can't have a straight line when that line is made up of discrete particles. And it does seem to be the case that the world we live in is made up of discrete particles. Just yesterday in Mikey's seminar, in the evening, we broached this a little bit, talking about, the quantum and quantifiability and the Planck length and the Planck time, and like how in philosophy we who am I? In philosophy, there's a tendency to reject kind of embodied life, embodied existence. By the way, I'm on the lens I said I wasn't gonna try to use. This is a 50. It's a 55 actually. It's a 55 millimeter f.095. So you can see I'm just struggling to be in frame, struggling to be in focus. This is why I would never use this lens. But it's a little bit of fun to play around. So, but yeah, like I can't even see the monitor to see where the focus is. Is it on, at my ear? Is it at my nose? I can't really find it, and it's such a fucking shallow focal plane with this lens. And let's be honest, this is not a $4,000 premium prime. This is a $700 knockoff, and that might sound absurd to say it's cost $700 and that's cheap. That's the way photography works, and that's one of the many reasons I wanted to not rely on photography as like a way to make a living for the rest of my life, because it just costs so much money, and it feels like the amount of money you have to spend to keep up keeps increasing, while the amount of money you actually make as a photographer just keeps going down. I think the majority of money I made, maybe that's not true. I was going to say I think the majority of money I made was from stock photography, like Getty images. It actually feels good to sell something. Like every time Getty sends me an email and says, your assets were purchased or whatever, like that feels good, because Getty images, like, and maybe not even anymore, but it used to be the case that everybody knew what Getty images was, because you recognize it because you see Getty in the magazines. You know, every time you see an image of someone that's been licensed, you would see, photo Getty images, and then it would contribute the individual artist or company. So Getty was like the legitimate stock photography outlet. So it does feel good to sell shit on Getty. There's also stock photography services that started like doing it for free. So it was like, yeah, you don't even have to pay to use these assets. You just have to credit the individual artist. Um, and that's whatever, dude. And there's a Shutterstock, iStock. There's several stock image outlets, and I've participated in several of them, but Getty is always the one that feels the best whenever I get a little email from Getty. But it's not very much money, and it is less now that people broadly have access to image generation models. They no longer have to search stock image sites for a photo of a puppy or a photo of a tree or a picnic table or whatever, and download it. They can just generate it. So the amount of money that comes in on stock photography has just, taken a nosedive. But yeah, I was going to say that maybe the majority of the money I've ever made on photography comes from stock photography, but I don't know if that's true, because you can actually charge a lot of money to do photography. You can also not charge a lot. Like, you can give people good prices. And it's also true that good prices can still turn into a lot if you're like regularly busy. But there's so many people who just overcharge. The internet definitely did a number on, or social media really did a number on the photography world. And I just don't think it's ever going to properly recover to what it used to be. Now, what it used to be, is that even worth recovering? I don't know. I kind of don't think so. I like the fact that I have a lot of photography equipment and I'm free to go do photography for fun rather than like trying to do it for this economic thing. So that's cool. But anyway, lenses and cameras are expensive. So this $700 lens, I actually think this was cheaper. I think this was like $500. But that's still cheap. I could go out and buy a proper Nikkor lens. I don't even know what their 50-8.5 or 9.5 costs. It's thousands of dollars. It's insane. I mean, there's lenses that go for $10,000, $14,000. Like, fuck, dude. There's like $50,000 setups and shit. It's fucking stupid. The amount of money. Photography is expensive as fuck. Can be. You can also, rock a cheap camera and a cheap lens and just know what you're doing. And that's also a valid approach. There's people who do that too. So there's no proper way to do it. But yeah, so this is that lens that I was talking about, the f.95. Yeah. And, it's a look. It's a different look. I don't really use this lens very often. I got it for portrait photography, because you can get some really beautiful portraits with a very shallow depth of field and this focal length. I like for portraits. Now, I also like 85 for portraits. I also like 135 for portraits. I've done portraits with 35 too. And that, I don't know. That's maybe inside baseball for some people, those numbers. But the length, the focal length of the lens changes many, many qualities about the image that you produce. It's not just like the field of vision. It's also like the shape of things in the image, and even the texture of the image itself is influenced by focal length and other factors as well. But yeah, so it does seem to be the case that the world is made of discrete particles. So even if we were to disregard imperfect perception and imperfect interpretation, it still is the case that all things are made up of other things. And there does seem to be like an ultimate limit down at the very, very bottom And I don't know what it is because I'm not a physicist, a scientist, or whatever. I'm not even a philosopher, right? What am I? I'm some fucking dude. But I think about stuff and I talk about stuff. And it does seem to be the case that the world is like an awesome Lego set. But so there's always going to be incongruencies when things are instantiated. Like when things are material, because the nature of material itself, there's no such thing as perfect. So like even all the way at this like ontological level, nothing can be perfect. But you don't have to go that far. And I think going that far tends to, like, for most people, tends to just start to occupy this space of like, yeah, big ideas, man. You know, that's just your opinion, man. We all have one, and yours is equally valid. And sure, that's fun, but that's also not my. It's not my thing. That's not how I get down. I don't want to hear everybody's opinion. I don't even want to share my opinions. I want to communicate about my ideas. But I don't just want to be up here sharing my opinions. I don't know. Maybe it looks like that sometimes. And you know what? Sometimes it even is true that I do just want to say something and share my opinion. But the reason is because I believe there is some direct. What the fuck? My headphones just turned off. I believe there is some directionality. What's happening? Why did my headphones just turn off? I don't know. Anyway, I believe there is some directionality that I can, approach, get to, or whatever by discourse. What's going on, Bluetooth headphones? What are you doing? So, yeah, you don't have to go that far. And I definitely don't want to go that far and be the guy, let's smoke weed and talk about quantum physics, bro. That's not what I'm trying to do. I think here-ish. I don't know. The monitor's tiny. I'm trying to see where I am in focus. It's so fucking shallow with this lens. But yeah, so this is what it looks like. I got several other lenses out. I'm going to pause the recording real quick and put a different lens on, and then we'll probably talk about that for a while and talk about the other thing I was talking about. So we'll be right back. Look, dude, my desk, I can't even reach it. So I'm in frame, and I'm not even really in frame. This is just as far as my mic will reach. I'm like, in frame. Can't touch my desk with my arm. Can't touch my desk with my foot either. That's how far away I am. So I couldn't use this lens. Let me pause this recording and pop a different guy on here. Okay, dude. This is... Oh my gosh. I can't even get this fucking lens to focus at all. Okay. This is an 18 millimeter fisheye lens. And so you see how that 21 millimeter yesterday, how that was wide. It was definitely not this wide, but it wasn't bowed out like this. Like this is the fisheye thing. And if this were on a full size camera, a full frame, or if I were shooting 35 millimeter film, it would be even more intense. But again, this is an APS-C, which is just the sensor size. It's a smaller sensor. So the actual image that comes into the sensor is larger than the sensor itself. So it only picks up a little bit of the image. Let me see if I can actually draw this. Let's see. So yeah, my lines are super crooked. All right, this is stupid looking. You guys can't even see that. So in this box, there's a large box. And the large box is representing medium format or large format film, and that's the large sheets of film and or the large plates. They could be huge, they can be not so huge, 4x5, 5x7, whatever. But yeah, anything medium format and above is the outside box. And then the second box in, that is 35 millimeter and full frame. So that's the size of the sensor in a digital camera. We'll stick with digital cameras because you could get medium format digital cameras as well, and those are fucking stupid expensive. And those are, like, most of the time, anyone who at least did America and probably Canada and probably Western Europe at least, if you got like school photos, they probably used a medium format camera. So the camera they were using was probably $30,000, and the photography company or the individual photographer probably charged, I don't know, a few $1,000 maybe, to do all the photos. And then like that was like to charge the school or the institution or whatever just to be there for their time. Or they may not have even done that, but they probably did do a day rate. And then after the fact, you have to pay, send us $80 if you want 12 5x7s, 12 6x9s, and 24 4x5s or whatever. That's where they actually made the money, was in selling the packages to you, which is very similar to how like licensing works. Like, you can charge a day rate, charge for your time, which I think most people do, or it's at least the proper way to go about it, usually, though not always. But you charge for your time, like, hey, I'm going to be there all day. You book me for 5 hours, so I'll be shooting photos for 5 hours, and then on the back end of that, I'll be editing and processing for maybe double that time, so that's 10 hours. So if I'm getting booked for a 5-hour photo shoot, that's actually you're gonna pay me $15 an hour, or you're gonna pay me 15 hours, and I'm gonna charge you $100 an hour, so you're gonna pay me $1,500. Like, that would be just real simple. And maybe those aren't even realistic numbers. Whatever. Anyway. And then you also pay, like, okay, so you're paying for my labor, because that's just the taking of the photos and then the editing, processing, delivering of the photos, but actually delivering the assets. So actually, if you want to buy the photo or license the photo, you have to pay per image on the back end of that. And you can either do this perpetual license, which is basically buying the photograph, or you can do like a time limited license or whatever, or a conditional license. Anyway, this is full frame because we're just doing digital, the one on the outside. The one just inside, so it'll be the 1 2 3rd box, that's APS-C. And then the fourth one, that's micro 4/3. So that's actually it's actually not the smallest, but that's like the standard digital camera sensor sizes. So in a full frame camera, the image that's coming in is actually like an oval. Let's see. I could have drawn it around the outside for medium format, but that would probably throw us off. So there's a circle around this box. Actually, ignore this outside box. It's a circle, right? It's an egg. It's a something. That's the actual image that comes in the lens, right? Because in the overwhelming majority, this is another really good lens. This is my Nikkor 135 D14. Oh, this is 1.2. My bad, 1.2. So this is even wider than the 1.4. And it has defocus control, so you can do front focus, back focus to get that really soft focus look, that really creamy, kind of ethereal soft focus that is very good for portraits, and can actually give you some interesting results for street photography and landscape photography as well. Okay, get in there, camera. Where's the light? I need to get the light and make sure to be able to show you. Okay, this is retarded. I should get a different lens. See, you guys see the aperture? See how cool that looks? It's like a starship. Something out of a sci-fi movie. This is a big nasty lens. But in the lens, this is a circle, and this is actually is this an ace? No, this is not an aspherical lens. These are spherical. Anyway, so the image that comes in, the reason that the aperture doesn't affect like the frame and the aspect of the image, like the reason that the size of the image that I capture through this lens is not affected by this thing in the middle that's opening and closing. Like it might be intuitive to think like, oh, so does that like change the size of the image you capture? I think I probably thought it would have, until I really started understanding photography. But the way, oh my God, is this really turning into like an explainer video about camera lenses with this shitty lens on and the horrible lighting? Okay, quick and dirty. I should turn this music back on so it's not just silence, right? That'd be fun. What are we working with here? Come on, guy. What are we working with? Turn it down a little bit. And should I change the lens or keep it with this shitty lens? It's kind of funny to keep this shitty lens, isn't it? Yep. Okay. I'm drawing a little diagram here. Sensor. Lens. This is stupid. This is so fucking stupid. Okay. Yeah, this is absolutely stupid. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? Because I felt compelled to, and now I have to. I can't just stop now, you know what I'm saying? Quit while you're ahead, Nance. Quit while you're ahead. Okay, let me pause the music. And look, this is rudimentary. This is remedial. This is dumbass level bullshit. Also, I have to pee. That's why I'm shaking like this. Okay. So, just like in the eyeball, the lenses will like flip the image, right? So, here's the outside world. Here's a tree. The happy little squirrel. I love squirrels, dude. There's a lady walking her pet. And here's the sun. Oh, she's out at night. It's nighttime. And there's the moon. Here's the lady. And she has a pet rabbit. And she's walking the pet rabbit. And here's the squirrel up in the tree. And they're having fun. This is so stupid, dude. Okay, so here's the outside world. That's my drawing. A tree, a lady, a rabbit, squirrel, and a moon and stuff. The lens sees it, and the image comes through the lens. And because the way lenses work, it flips the image and then kind of reflips it back up. But so this is the film or the sensor. We'll call it sensor. What is happening, dude? I'm losing my mind. There's so many other things I should be doing right now. So here's the sensor, right? All the way over here on this end. That says sensor. You can't read that. This lens is horrible. You can see that the image is actually larger. The footprint of the image is actually larger than the sensor itself. Okay, and the reason that changing that aperture doesn't actually affect the frame, doesn't actually affect like the boundaries of the image, is because that's the way light works. The lens bends the light and then bends it back out. So the image always comes down to this point in the middle of the lens anyway. And that is how and why the aperture, what lens is this? Oh, this is still the 135. That's how and why the aperture can iris open and shut. And you're still going to get the same dimensions of image, right? That makes sense. You guys learned something. For those of you that didn't already know, today you learned. I'm going to swap lenses now. No, I'm going to finish this and then I'll swap lenses. So the image comes in, projects it. It is larger than the sensor itself. So there's full frame, which is the same size as 35 millimeter film, which is standard film. When you think of photography, that's just the standard size, 35 millimeter or full frame. APS-C is here in the middle between full frame and micro four thirds. So you get less of the image. So it actually zooms you in to the image. So the same size image, it's actually not the same size because the length is different. Like the sensor, look, it's basically the same size image, but because the sensor is smaller, it's actually zooms in. So it's like cropping. Like, you know what cropping is, right? You take a photo on your phone, a hot girl at the beach. You want to zoom in on her bikini because it has a cool slogan on it. And it says like, free the whales or whatever. And you're like, oh, does that say free the whales or does that say beach sails? You're not sure what it says. So you crop in so you can read it, right? This is a silly, gross, vulgar thing I just said. It's okay. I'm not really that vulgar in real life. This is all fake. But yeah, so having that smaller sensor crops you in. So on a full frame camera, this lens is actually wider, and actually the fisheye effect is even more intensified. Because this is APS-C, this is what you get. And if I were using a micro four thirds camera, then it would be even more zoomed in or cropped in. It's pretty cool the way that works, right? Let me pause this, and I don't know what lens am I going to put on? You know, I got all these fucking cool lenses over here. I got this bad boy out. This is my Mobetta Go-Getta. This is the camera right here, dude. My D850. This is my 85. This is a Nikkor 85 1.4D. So these two lenses, this 135 and this 85, the D focus control. These are portrait lenses, and they have the ability to focus, and they do autofocus, though I do tend to use them in manual focus. They have the ability to focus and then have an offset that you can control the offset for if you want front focus or back focus, if you want the image to look a little softer or if you want it to look a little muddier to get the desired aesthetic effect. I could show you some examples. I'm not going to because what am I doing? What the fuck am I doing? I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing, dude. But it sure is fun. Okay. I will give you $20 if you can guess what lens is on the camera right now. And there are a couple people that I won't be taking submissions from for this contest. Adam, you're one of them. Nick, you're one of them. You guys don't get to guess because I think you guys probably would be the people that I would expect to be able to guess this lens. So you guys don't count. Everyone else, if you guess what lenses so this is the third lens in this video. If you can guess what lens is lens number 3 in this video, I will give you $20. You can email me, put it in the comments, and then if you're right, I will ask for your email address and I will Venmo you $20. That's retarded, but sure, why not? But I'm not in focus right now, and I'm not framed up either. Probably because I'm super antsy. I had a bunch of coffee this morning. Too much coffee. Now I'm all antsy. I have to go to the bathroom. What was I talking about? What was I talking about before all this? Dude, I don't even know. So perfect. Nothing's perfect. It's not about perfection. It is about preference, and it is about comfort, and it is about ease of use, and it is about like, is this helping you or is this hindering you when it comes to tools, when it comes to technology? So if we are using cameras and we keep searching for perfection and we keep buying better cameras, more expensive cameras, better lenses, more expensive lenses. Look at this big nasty motherfucker though, dude. This thing, I fucking love this camera. See if we can see that. Big old nasty mofo. Come on, guy. Okay, what do we want to roll with? Oh, you peachy. I should not do this. Okay, what's up, camera? What's up? I'm gonna take a picture of my camera. So it's doing the autofocus thing, and it's fucking annoying. That was F14. Let's do F16. Okay, anyway, I'm fucking, yeah, if you keep buying the camera, and you keep buying the lens, and even if you keep taking the course from Tony and Chelsea, I love those guys, but, you know, you keep thinking like, oh, if I just buy their book, I will learn how to be a better photographer. If I just buy this expensive ass camera, I will be a better photographer. And it's not true, dude. Yes, it is true that you need equipment that performs at a performant level, right? Like you can't be out here taking good photos on some bullshit. Someone sent me some photos, and they have an old phone. What'd they say? It was like an iPhone 8 or something, like just an old phone, which it's not that old, but it is also old. What iPhone are they on now? 16, 15? I don't fucking know. And so their phone's several years old. And they sent me some photos that they had taken on their phone. And a few of those photos are just gorgeous images. And I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I can, get inside your mind just by looking at a photo that you took. But it is true that I spend a lot of time thinking about photography, and like not just this side of it, gear, cameras and lenses and this and that and what, and and there's different schools and there's different styles and there's different approaches and this and that. Like, yeah, I think about all that too, but I also think about like the phenomenology of photography. So I think about like the subjectivity that's wrapped up in every photograph. And it is true that the world we live in now is just inundated with billions of photographs. And the overwhelming majority of them are meaningless bullshit. Well, and even like when I go out and do a job, say I do a job and I deliver 100 photos. It is just the case that I take thousands of photos to get 100 photos thanks to digital photography. Now, back in the days of film, that's not a viable approach, although there were still people who would just burn through fucking film. But that's something that was only made possible really thanks to digital photography. So I can actually, and I don't know if this is true or not, But right here in the moment, I want to say that for every given photograph, like if I go out for a day and I do street photography for the day, and I come home and I get 20 images, for every single image that like comes out of that session, there were maybe 5 that didn't, but it's of the same subject and it's like the same photo. So I take 6 photos. 1 passes the test, the other 5 don't. And these numbers are not true. They're not correct because sometimes you take 1 and sometimes you take 25. But there's always this kind of surplus thanks to digital photography of like, yeah, the overwhelming majority of photos that are generated today are meaningless, either because they're intentional throwaway photos, which actually probably account for less than just the fact that, I mean, people will take 20 selfies just to upload one on Instagram or whatever. And who gives a shit about Instagram? Instagram is horrible. Instagram is like demonic. Something's going on with my headphones. I don't know what the fuck's going on, but they just automatically disconnected again. And that's potentially a problem. Is the battery dead? Were they on all night? Oh, yikes, dude. I don't know. Anyway. Hold on a second. I do have other headphones, and I do actually have the ability to plug. I do have the ability to plug those headphones in, so they're wired headphones rather than Bluetooth headphones. But I don't love doing that. I got Bluetooth for a reason. I like being able to get up and walk around. Here's my ears, dude. Most people on the internet haven't seen my ears because I'm always wearing headphones. Look at them. Aren't they pretty? Look at my pretty, pretty ears. Fuck, my ears are not pretty. Can you see the holes? I used to have big old gauges. Oh, yeah, you can see. Used to be big old gauges. Used to put cigars through my ear holes. The overwhelming majority of photos are just noise. Actually, fucking Michel Serre, dude. Noise and signal. He's not the only guy who talks about noise and signal, but reading him recently, thinking about communication, thinking about information, data, and kind of the world we live in today, the information age, this distinction between noise and signal becomes so much more relevant and pertinent and pressing. It used to be the case that people would talk about noise and signal, I think in reference to like radiometry, I don't know, electromagnetic waves, right? And they were like noise and signal, like radar, like radio, like AM, FM, fucking radio, wideband radio, CB radio, whatever, closed band. That terminology comes from like the radio age. But it was still like it was always in reference to like, oh, that's idle chatter, or that's actual talk. There's actual like information flowing. There's meaningful content flowing here, and that signal, and then it's just static, just meaningless noise. That's noise. And I think it's when people talk about it, they're either talking in this like instrumental way where they're actually talking about the noise and the signal, or they're kind of vaguely gesturing toward idle chatter. And idle chatter outnumbers us. Fucking like this insane ratio. I don't even know. Mikey talks about like, just yesterday, again, in Mikey's seminar, he was talking about noumena, Kant's noumena, that then go on to become Landian, fanged noumena. Or, look, sign up, become a subscriber, listen to Mikey talk about it. I'm not doing it justice here. But his favorite example of a noumena is the sun, because the surface of the sun is like 27 billion degrees Celsius or some insane shit, like some number that's so insane it just becomes meaningless. We have no frame of reference. We do not relate to it. We do not have access to the sun, the numen, or the noumenon of the sun, because it would just totally eradicate us. Like before we even got anywhere near it. Like if we just got a little bit closer to the sun, we would melt or we would burn up or whatever. We would be evaporated. So like the actual surface of the sun is this kind of noumenon. Mikey likes to use that to illustrate this thing where, like, you understand the sun. You have a frame of reference. You live in reference to the sun. You can go outside and you can feel the warmth. If it's 75 degrees Fahrenheit, which is maybe 23 Celsius, whatever for you communists and Canadians. Is there a difference? Yes, there is. And Europeans. You can go outside, it can be 75 degrees, and that makes sense. That's intelligible to you. You have access to that. You live in reference to that. You go outside, it's 100 degrees F. That makes sense. You understand that. It's 32 degrees F. You understand that. That makes sense. Like these are like things that we have access to phenomenologically. But the surface of the sun is so just far removed from human experience or any possible human experience that it becomes this numinous thing. It becomes a noumenon, or it already is a noumenon. It doesn't become, but he uses the surface of the sun to illustrate the difference between things and things in themselves. And it's a great distinction. I like it. I prefer thinking about data or noise. Noise is the noumenon of the world we live in today, because I was going to say, trillions. That might be pushing it. Although I think it's possible to talk about the number of meaningless photographs generated and the number of meaningless, text messages sent or comments posted or messages in a live chat sent. Like just this like meaningless, mindless, idle chatter that we confuse for meaningful information, content-bearing information. Now, the words data and information, I problematize them. I don't think we have a good understanding across the board in the world of like data science and in the world of philosophy and in the world of theory. People use these terms differently. Some people use them interchangeably. Some people use them distinctly, and some people use them actually backwards from the way I use them. But like data is mindless, idle chatter in the form of 25 selfies, so you can get one selfie to post on Instagram. So 12 people can like it, upvote it or whatever. A couple people can leave a comment. Maybe it's a good comment. Maybe it's a bad comment. Maybe it's an indifferent comment. It's most likely a bot anyway. Let's keep it real. It's someone selling you a crypto scam or something. All of those things are data, but they're generated by us. And so we think that it's content-bearing information. And we think data is the stuff that's generated by the bots. And we think data is the stuff that's kind of passively generated by just like when you go throughout the day, like data is being generated and collected as we speak by Google and by Microsoft and by, all the programs on my computer and my cell phone. And, Nikon has data on me. And like every time I update the firmware on one of my cameras, that generates info for Nikon. So there's like this machinic kind of data that allows people to think that your selfie actually is like content bearing and actually meaningful in the world, but it's not. And I think that the noise to signal, I think that's my favorite example of noumena, just because we cannot comprehend. I think it probably is like in on the order of trillions. Like how far outweighed we are, and we here is us and our intentional, meaningful acts, content bearing acts, intentional acts, you know, tell someone, hey, you know, I love you, I'm thinking about you, or whatever. That can be meaningful and intentional and content bearing if, you know, if said in the proper way. It can also be, you know, idle chatter. It can also be meaningless bullshit if you're just doing it in this like reactive way of like someone posts a meaningless selfie on Instagram and then you just say, I'm gonna hit the heart button and I'm gonna say, girl, I love you, or whatever. Look, it comes down to like, this is at the level of subjectivity. So I'm not making like bold proclamations here. I mean, I kind of am, but I'm also not. Because these are like questions that I'm asking right now. These are not answers and solutions that I'm offering up to the world, right? But the proclamation I am making is that it's on the order of trillions. So the noise to signal ratio, the noise is up here in the trillions. Signal is down here in the ones or the tens. Okay, and I'm talking about magnitude here. So I'm thinking about all these things. I think about the process of photography. I think about the art and artifice of photography, but I also think about like the subjective intention behind a photo. So when someone sends me a photo, there's a likelihood that I look at it and I think about them, and I don't think about like, oh, that's a beautiful scene. I mean, I do think that, but I also like try to connect with them via the photograph, you know, across space and time. And I actually try to imagine like, what was their intention when they took this photo? I can see the light is coming in this particular way and it's hitting the moss on the rock, you know, and oh, there's a shadow there and that's framed up and this and that. You can see the reflection and refraction and this and that. And so there's always intention in photographs, and maybe it's not explicit. Like maybe someone doesn't have this like explicit process of like, I'm going to do all these things to capture this image. Maybe they do it just like on vibes, but there's still this kind of subjective process that's going on. And those vibes are just like a short summation of all these things. Like the way the light comes in at an angle and kind of reflects off this thing and casts this in light and casts this in shadow and this and that. Like that generates emotional content, that generates emotional information. And so I try to access that from the perspective of the one taking the image. And then I also try to passively enjoy the image as just, you know, the audience, as an enjoyer rather than a producer. So when I look at photos, look, this is not all the time. And in fact, it's not most of the time, because most of the time it's just like, oh, it's just a photo of something. But sometimes photos speak to me in a certain kind of way. And so I try to really I try to get into this frame of reference with the other, because I do think of it as like a type of, maybe not communication, but something, contact, congress, you know, belief, love, something. But yeah, so this person sent me some photos and they have an old shitty cell phone and they're like, I can't wait to see what getting a new cell phone, like what is that going to do to the photos I can take? And I don't know if I said it, but I definitely thought like, well, you know, a couple of those photos you sent me were gorgeous, and really, really captured the moment. So if you're doing that with a 8-year-old cell phone, I can't wait to see what you can do with a modern cell phone, because cell phone photography has improved over the last 5 years even. So you need a level of gear. What am I even talking about at this point? I don't even know. To be honest, man. I drank too much coffee this morning. um, um, you need equipment that's actually good enough. But you can take a 15-year-old digital Nikon camera. There's one on my shelf behind me. And you can take a 35-year-old lens that you can pick up for fucking, I don't know. This lens is not cheap. This is another expensive lens. But you get what I'm trying to say, right? Like, you can go get cheap shit. You don't have to have the newest greatness. You can get old gear that's been well kept. And it can create images. You don't have to keep searching for the perfect gear. A lot of photographers do that. A lot of photographers get caught up in the gear. And look, it is exciting. It's a thing that we can nerd out on. It's a thing that we can get excited about. It's another way to consume, and we all love consumption, right? It's a way to keep up with the Joneses. And it's also like there's status wrapped up in this too. Like the fact that I have this lens and I've used this lens and I know how to use this lens. There's symbolic capital wrapped up in this lens and in this lens, and this camera is a DA50. It's the big guns, dude. And in this lens and the lens that's on the camera, remember, if you can guess what lens is on the camera, you get $20. There's symbolic capital tied up in these things, in these commodities. But they're not just commodities, they are objects of use. These are mine. If ever, and I'm sure I will, at some point get rid of this lens. Maybe I'll die and someone will get it from me. Maybe I'll gift it to somebody. Maybe I'll sell it to somebody. Who knows? But at some point in time, someone else will come into possession of this lens. I hope. I hope it doesn't just go to the landfill. And it's mine. It's not just the same Zeiss Milvis you can buy, on www.carlzeiss.com or whatever their website is. Like, this is mine. I've used it. I've sweat on this. I've even got blood on this lens. Being a skateboarder, I often bleed. And being a photographer and a skateboarder, when you try to combine those two worlds, I'll be out trying to take photos of dudes. I'll also skate around a little bit. I try to get a little photo. But I've bled on this lens. I've sweat on this lens. I've thought about this lens. I've thought with this lens. I've communicated with other people by way of this lens. So if anybody gets this lens, when I finally part with this lens, or when it parts with me, it is true that there's something unique, singular about this lens, even though it's a commodity, even though you can go buy one just like it off the shelf. Just because it's just like it doesn't mean it's the same thing. It is a singular object of use, not just a use value, not just a commodity. But yeah, you don't keep searching for perfection. Find a level of knowledge, a level of mastery, a level of proficiency that allows you to achieve the desired result and roll with it. It's very easy to waste money in anything, really. But if we approach things from this perspective of like, is this helping me or is this hindering me? And if that question doesn't make sense to you, then I think you're doing it wrong, because you should always go into using an object for a reason. Else, the object is using you. And I think that sums it up, folks. That's a great quilting point.